state called the Olmsted Plan?
The Olmsted, yes.
When's the last time it's been updated?
Hold on, I honestly don't know, so let me see if
Well,
someone on my team can answer that question for you.
that's okay.
Director Cloud said it's been several years,
Okay.
but we'll get you a precise
I
information.
don't need the exact date. That tells me what I need to know. And to John Stephen, we've been at this for almost a year, and anybody that knows what the Olmsted ruling was knows that's the most important lawsuit that's ever come down the pike in this country concerning mental illness. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
It is very,
What
it is
really-
also development disabilities too.
Yeah. What really concerns me is I hear a lot of talk about regionalism. And that lawsuit was all about, and that decision was all about community basing. And I hear almost nothing about community basing. Now, in 2002, this state had a lawsuit concerning some mental illness cases. And there was a Terry versus Hill case in which this state lost. And Mr. Hill was a mentally ill patient and had been ordered by the court to receive mental illness treatment. And 6 months later, the court found out that he was still in jail and received none. That turned into a class action. And these cases were so severe that the court heard testimony about people eating their own flesh and drinking their own urine and eating their own feces. And just recently, you know, we've heard slides and we've seen testimony about other southern states and how other people are doing it so well. And 9 weeks ago, the state of Mississippi got sued by the DOJ over exactly the same thing. And the key in all of this is community basing, and I'm hearing none of that. And when I hear regionalism, it tells me that we're going in exactly the wrong direction. The DOJ quoted some financials concerning Mississippi, comparing the money that they were spending on institutionalization and the funding going in the wrong direction. And they were comparing $470 per patient per day on that versus $30 per patient per day in community basing. And I just wonder why that we're a year into this now, and I didn't hear a thing about these lawsuits until I started looking into it myself. I didn't hear it from any consultants. I didn't hear it from DHS. I didn't hear it from anybody else. I didn't find it out until I started looking into it myself. And what I'm getting is far different from what I'm hearing. And I'd like to hear some response to that, please.
I'll start and then ask the two of y'all to add into it. We 100% agree with you that what we need to be focused on here is growing our home and community-based services. And one of the very important reasons why we are both pursuing the rules changes on DD, the rules changes on behavioral health, and trying to combine them with something like this hybrid model is because if we don't build those home and community-based services, if we don't build out both the providers that are there, help them to grow, help us to have more services and quality services, we will find ourselves in the same place. And looking at Arkansas, what we have believed is that the work your task force has done to design savings, the way you've designed them allows us to actually grow the services and grow the community-based services. And that, I think, is a very, very, very important element of what's going on. As you look at, for example, the behavioral health rules transformations coming, while they may, and while it puts limitations on intensive services, meaning it requires the independent assessment before, someone gets those services, what it does is it opens up community services. It opens up the ability for those services to be provided in a lot more settings so that it's much easier for folks to get those services, for doctors to prescribe them there in their own clinics if they want to. That beginning to grow out those services is hugely important. I apologize, we have not used those terms and we have not really talked about it to the degree we should. But a big part of doing all of this is to be able to move to doing more with crisis teams, for example, that can go into areas and support when help is needed, looking at more crisis centers, looking at being able to do more in the communities and grow those home and community-based providers. As we talk to those providers, we talk to them about, if you're providing one type of service, could you provide that service to a different population? Could you grow what you're doing? What kind of supports could we provide to do that? When Dennis talks about these new RECOs, working regional care centers, it's about those regional centers really then working with the providers that are there in the community to grow them and receiving both the financial incentives from these premium tax monies and others to be able to help them grow their capability and the quality that flows on it. That is the cornerstone of what we have to do here. And we clearly are not communicating that. And it is really critical. It's also why we know that those particular providers, to the question that was being raised, we know that those providers are not the ones that are going to be bearing risk, right? We've got to grow those. And we need to make it to where others in the structure realize that and help us grow those, and it works within their financial model. Dennis and John, if y'all would like to add, please.
Also, if I may, Senator, and again, I'm new, we haven't had a chance to get to know each other, but after Olmstead, one of the most significant pieces of legislation and administrative action was increasing the use of home and community-based services. And I think if you look back at the time while I was at CMS, we have now crossed the point in which more services are delivered in the community rather than in institutional care. One of the most important initiatives offered to states was something called Money Follows the Person that we had passed in the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005. That was one of the initiatives that I championed. So we are very much on the same, we view this very much in the same way. Money Follows the Person helps provide additional funding to states to get people out of institutions, and that's where I've been coming from.
Well,
I'll add to that.
okay.
Senator Cooper, one of the things, we're looking at this on your behalf. We represent the task force. So the one thing that we have said from you from the very beginning was this state needs to shift its reliance off of institutional care into community-based care. That was one of our very first recommendations. I think you've done a great job in really pushing a lot of the preliminary task force recommendations. You mentioned it. We mentioned Olmstead in our report. We continue to mention Olmstead. We know it's an issue, but I will say, working with Senator Rayford and also Representative Hammer in the HTC committee, you don't have the quality of care issues that other states have had, that we saw in your institutions here. You take good care of your residents, and at least what we've seen. So I would be careful, not to use Olmstead though and just wave up a white flag to the federal government. I do agree, and we're going to have in your final report for you to look at as recommendation completely a lot of home and community-based care suggestions, because the only way you can reach the savings, whether you refer to this as regional, community-based, it has to be just what you said. It has to be de-institutionalized care in the community with good quality of care and quality of life. And so we've got to make sure that the capacity is there of the provider community, and you have to make sure they're paid well as well. There are some rates that we shared with you early on in our recommendations on home and community-based care at the very entry direct care level that also need to be looked at. So all of these issues are issues that we would bring independently when we're reviewing this on your behalf. So you raise a really good point.
Well, I'm not through raising it. There's another aspect to that. In 2011, there was a crisis unit at Jonesboro, and it was shut down.